1974, we were both trying to forge our paths, and we actually played on the same bill. And
for decades, the whole world believed Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne were brother-like contemporaries. But no, the leader of KISS has just thrown cold water on the media by admitting what he truly thought about Ozzy Osbourne. Was this belated confession an act of admiration or a long-hidden form of quiet contempt? Was the relationship between these two monuments truly as good as they made it appear in public? Do not take your eyes off the screen because the shocking answer will be revealed right after this.
You have breaking news from the world of entertainment. We have received word that music legend Ozzy Osbourne has died.
Right after the news of Ozzy Osbourne's death on July 22nd, 2025 was announced by his family, Gene Simmons immediately canceled his personal schedules to carry out a series of interviews lasting continuously from 8 to 10 hours on major television networks.
Loving father, dedicated husband. Sharon and Ozzy have been together decades and decades. Most people break up their families, especially men.
Sitting in front of the cameras of NBC News and CBS Mornings throughout July 22nd and 23rd, the leader of KISS appeared with a bare face without the slightest trace of makeup, revealing the wrinkles of age and eyes reddened from lack of sleep. Instead of maintaining the image of a carefree rock star as usual, the musician repeatedly covered his face with his hands, his voice choking as memories of his late friend suddenly rushed back. The passing of his colleague seemed to have completely knocked down the wall of arrogance that Gene Simmons had painstakingly built before the public for the past half-century. At the NBC News studio while speaking with reporter Gotti Schwartz, Gene Simmons used a special term to define the stature of the Black Sabbath frontman. He asserted that Ozzy Osbourne was a singularity of nature, a one-of-a-kind mass, that scientists often use to refer to astronomical phenomena that cannot be explained by conventional theory.
He was a stand-up guy who treated the Queen of England the way he'd treat next-door neighbor. Hey, would you like some?
From the perspective of the KISS leader, the entire world of performers in this genre of music, including himself, always had to try to borrow external elements such as edgy costumes, stage effects, or an artificially growling voice in an effort to prove themselves dangerous and attract the crowd. By contrast, for Ozzy Osbourne, that edginess already existed in his flesh and blood, and that man never had to try to become anyone other than himself. This pivotal thread of confession was further explored in September 2025 when Gene Simmons appeared as a guest on the podcast Fail Better hosted by actor David Duchovny.
It's heartbreaking because I knew him for decades and decades, and there was a unique human being, a giant.
In the quiet space of the studio, the conversation gradually stripped away ordinary nostalgia to touch the deepest hidden corners of self-reflection in the one left behind. The leader of KISS frankly looked back on the long period he had spent immersed in glory and his own arrogance, which had caused him many times to make mistaken statements about his colleagues. In front of the camera, Gene Simmons confessed Ozzy taught an idiot with a giant ego like me a great lesson in humility. This statement marked a completely different chapter in Gene Simmons' awareness, where he voluntarily admitted his own smallness before the absolute authenticity of his late friend. This belated awakening did not stop at words of praise in the media, as it was also the result of a long process in which Gene Simmons observed the way Ozzy Osbourne treated the world around him. After decades of standing together under the stage lights, the leader of KISS realized that while he himself always calculated every strategic step to strengthen commercial power, the other man chose to walk onto the stage in the most original way. The contrast between someone who always worked to optimize his public image and someone willing to expose every chaos of his life created an invisible distance. And it was also the reason Gene Simmons nurtured absolute respect for his colleague. The understanding and reverence that the KISS leader held for his late friend reshaped the entire way he viewed the turbulent past between the two sides. These confessions unintentionally reopened old records of a long, fate-bound journey where friendship and fiery media conflicts once existed side by side. The story of the two rock icons began with an astonishing moment in the darkness backstage in the 1970s. Half a century of confrontation, In 1975, Kiss, at that time still a new name, struggling to find its footing in the rock scene, was chosen to open for Black Sabbath's tour, titled Sabotage. Their stop was a theater with a capacity of 3,000 spectators in the city of Boston, Massachusetts. Standing in the wings in his aggressive demon armor and thick makeup, Gene Simmons was focusing on preparing for his appearance when Ozzy Osbourne unexpectedly walked over. Instead of showing the coldness or distance of a major star at the height of his career, the Black Sabbath frontman approached with the extremely courteous demeanor of an English gentleman. That man took the initiative to extend his hand, warmly greeted the men wearing bizarre masks, and enthusiastically talked about their shared passion for the music of the Beatles and ABBA. This brief but unexpected meeting left a deep impression in Gene Simmons' mind about the true personality of his colleague behind the stage lights. The relationship that began with friendliness backstage years earlier faced harsh tests when both entered the 2000s, the period when mass media exploded with reality television programs. When the family show The Osbournes was released to the public and exposed the chaotic hidden corners of the Osbourne household, including the children's battles against addiction, Gene Simmons had harsh public reactions. In the newspapers of that period, the Kiss leader did not hesitate to disparage his colleague's family lifestyle, while smugly asserting that his own parenting style was the standard, because his children had not fallen into vice. These statements touching the boundary of family immediately ignited a wave of anger from Sharon Osbourne, Ozzy Osbourne's wife and manager, the famous Iron Woman who was ready to declare war on anyone who hurt her loved ones. After many years of maintaining a tense atmosphere and uncompromising verbal battles in the media, an important turning point occurred in June 2011. Gene Simmons decided to appear in person on the live television program The Talk, where Sharon Osbourne was serving as a host to settle the long-running conflict once and for all. Right on live television, before the eyes of millions of viewers, the Kiss leader took the initiative to lower his proud ego and offer a sincere apology to the woman in tears across from him, admitting that he had crossed the line by interfering in the internal affairs of the Osbourne family. This event temporarily closed the heated disputes, establishing a lasting truce between the two major artist families. The old grudge was officially erased completely through an unexpected incident that occurred on October 7th, 2025 in Malibu, California. At the age of 76, Gene Simmons suffered a fainting episode caused by severe dehydration while driving his Lincoln Navigator on the highway and collided directly with a vehicle parked by the roadside. Only 3 days after the accident, Sharon Osbourne put aside every distance from the past to send a basket of pastries and fruit to check on his health. Moved by this gesture, Gene Simmons immediately posted a public status on Twitter to express deep thanks to the woman he affirmed had a heart of gold, while also sharing that he still could not ease the emptiness left behind by his old friend. The closing of personal grievances in old age allowed the public to see more clearly the nature of the commercial successes Gene Simmons had once achieved. Behind an ego that knew how to bow before the emotional values of the present was a long journey of building and operating a giant money-making machine. That strategic pragmatism turned his band into one of the most influential financial empires in the history of global music. The Golden Era. Gene Simmons' pride and pragmatic nature were not random traits, as they were shaped throughout the Golden Era of Kiss, the period when he turned his name into a brand licensing machine unlike anything ever seen in entertainment history. Completely different from colleagues who focused only on pure artistic creation, Gene Simmons always openly affirmed his notorious business view that he made music first and foremost to make money. With the mindset of a tycoon, the musician built a loyal fan community called the Kiss Army and turned them into a customer base consuming thousands of items directly licensed by him. The group's branded product catalog stretched from ordinary items such as lunchboxes, pinball machines, and condoms to the strangest product of all coffins named Kiss Casket. The success of this item was so great that the family of legendary Pantera guitarist Dimebag Darrell decided to use this very branded coffin to bury him when he passed away, proving the sweeping power of the financial empire Gene Simmons had built. Alongside the commercial explosion, the private life of the Kiss leader also became the center of attention with an extremely indulgent lifestyle kept under the control of a cold mind. On major radio and television programs, Gene Simmons repeatedly shocked the public by openly declaring the existence of a scrapbook containing thousands of Polaroid photos, recording the faces of more than 4,800 lovers he had been involved with during the peak years of touring. Before officially establishing a long-term family relationship with his life partner Shannon Tweed, this womanizing musician also had highly publicized romances that drew heavy press coverage with two talented female singers, Cher and Diana Ross. Although he had a personal life full of temptations and the looseness typical of rock culture, Gene Simmons was a completely clear-headed man, as he always kept the principle of never using drugs or strong stimulants in order to preserve his ability to run his business. Making maximum use of the appeal from his controversial private life, Gene Simmons continued to bring his family into the reality television wave with the broadcast of the program Gene Simmons' Family Jewels, which ran from 2006 to 2012. The show not only brought enormous profits, but also exposed the entire lavish lifestyle, strict household rules, and peak self-importance of the wealthy frontman before the public. Still, his oversized ego and habit of speaking without restraint caused Gene Simmons to face fierce waves of social backlash. The peak came in 2014, when the musician faced a serious media crisis after making insulting and insensitive remarks aimed at people struggling with depression. The consequence of this arrogance led to a severe punitive decision from the media world, when he was officially banned permanently from the entire Fox News television network system in 2017 after inappropriate behavior backstage at the network. The ups and downs of an era filled with commercial glory and deep cracks in his public image gradually pushed Gene Simmons onto a new trajectory as he moved into the later slope of life. The dazzling glow of his self-important years began to give way to practical calculations about preserving and transferring power. Facing the harshness of time, the shrewd frontman understood that the time had come for him to make ultimate decisions for the legacy he had spent his entire life creating. The reality of old age. The merciless law of time finally caught up with Gene Simmons' tireless steps, forcing him to make historic decisions for a career lasting many decades. In December 2023, KISS held the final two performances of its farewell tour at the Entertainment Cathedral, Madison Square Garden in New York City. The shows were not merely ordinary concerts, but moments that witnessed Gene Simmons and his bandmates officially remove their demonic armor, bringing down the curtain on an era of live performance in flesh and blood. Right after the final melodies ended, the band carried out an unprecedented technological handover by introducing digital avatar versions shaped with modern simulation technology. This decision was intended to allow the virtual characters to continue performing in the digital space, marking the complete closing of the real-life tours that Gene Simmons had spent his whole life operating. The pragmatic commercial vision of the KISS leader was once again strongly affirmed through a shocking financial deal that took place in April 2024. Gene Simmons and the band decided to sell outright the entire music catalog intellectual property rights and the entire KISS brand to Sweden's Pophouse Entertainment for an estimated price of up to $300 million. By signing this billion-dollar contract, Gene Simmons accepted completely giving up ultimate control over the giant money printing machine that he himself had co-founded and designed from its earliest days. Handing over control of the brand to a foreign corporation reflected a clear-headed mindset in old age, as he actively chose a way to preserve asset value rather than try to cling to a kingdom he no longer had enough strength to manage directly. Letting go of large-scale business operations led Gene Simmons into a completely new life, recorded clearly through real changes as of May 2026. Instead of continuing to stay attached to the luxury and bustle of California, the veteran musician decided to shift his living space by moving to Nevada in search of peace. In this new environment, Gene Simmons still maintained his passion for music, but in a simpler and purer form by organizing small-scale performances with his own band, the Gene Simmons Band. On these stages, fans no longer saw the demon with bizarre makeup, bulky, high-platform boots, or tricks such as breathing fire and spitting fake blood. but only a man nearing 80 standing with a bass guitar and playing music with his most unadorned face. Gene Simmons' attitude toward life at the present time shows that he has fully accepted the natural law of life and death, especially after witnessing the passing of colleagues from his own era. The shrewd frontman no longer tries to strain himself to maintain the image of an immortal superstar or an arrogant demon before the media, choosing instead to face life with honesty and peace. Fully removing the commercial mask has helped Gene Simmons look back on his entire life through a lens deeper and more forgiving than ever before. It was this peaceful letting go and simple way of living in old age that created an invisible connection, urging the public to learn more deeply about the origin of the proud ego from years past. The coldly practical decisions of a seasoned music businessman turned out to have deep roots firmly planted in a distant and turbulent past. To decode the ultimate driving force behind the formation of a giant financial empire, the flow of the story must turn back in time to the very first starting point. The origin of the demon. The ultimate driving force behind Gene Simmons' cold pragmatism and intense desire to make money had deep roots firmly planted in a turbulent past from his youth. The KISS leader was born on August 25, 1949, in the city of Haifa, Israel, under the birth name Chaim Witz. The early years of the boy Chaim Witz passed in the extreme poverty of a broken family, where his father decided to walk away, leaving mother and son to fend for themselves in a land still filled with instability. His only support at that time was his mother, Flora Klein, a woman carrying deep emotional wounds as a fortunate survivor of the Holocaust and Nazi concentration camps. Her strictness and resilient will to survive passed on to her only son a deep awareness of the value of financial security. A major turning point occurred in 1958 when mother and son officially boarded a fateful ship to immigrate to New York City, America, in hopes of finding a new life. To quickly integrate into the open but highly competitive society there, the immigrant boy decided to change his name to Eugene Klein, also known as Gene Simmons. Before finding the light of his life under the music stage lights, Gene Simmons went through an extremely diverse journey of making a living and constantly striving to prove himself. He once graduated with a degree in education and worked as a teacher, directly teaching 6th grade students in Harlem, New York City. His sharp sense for fashionable trends also once brought the young musician into the offices of the famous fashion magazine Vogue as an editorial assistant. Still, the intense passion for the lively melodies of the rock and roll wave that exploded in the 1960s pushed Gene Simmons to make the decision to leave stable jobs behind and throw himself into the path of art. The fateful meeting with guitarist Paul Stanley laid the first foundation for the birth of a band named Wicked Lester, a music project that did not achieve much commercial success but became an important stepping stone for them to found KISS together in 1973. The creation of the demon persona named The Demon in 1973 was Gene Simmons' brilliant strategy to turn the wounds of a poor immigrant child into an ultimate weapon of power. He personally sketched and designed the distinctive bat lizard makeup with sharp lines inspired by the images of bats and demons. To strengthen the ferocity of this character on stage, Gene Simmons decided to commercialize every visual element of himself by wearing heavy armor, standing on 7-inch platform boots, and continuously performing unique stage skills such as breathing fire, spitting fake blood, and sticking out his long tongue before the camera. As the mask and commercial glory gradually receded into the background, the only thing left among the legends was appreciation and a pure friendship that overcame every storm of fame. If you found today's story about Gene Simmons' belated confession and journey of removing the mask interesting, please support us by pressing like and sharing this video with others who share the same passion for music. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss exclusive documentary profiles about the legends of world music. In your opinion, is it Ozzy Osbourne's authenticity or Gene Simmons' practical mindset that makes a true rocker? Please leave your opinion right below in the comments section so we can discuss it together. Thank you for watching, goodbye, and see you again in the next videos.